The opinions expressed on the radio program by the hosts, co-hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Genesis Radio, www.genesisradio.com, Genesis Radio's owners, management, or affiliates.
All right. Good evening and welcome to GenesisRadio.com. My name is Kendall Stevenson, and this brother over here, his name is Ronald Yates, and this brother over here, his name is Kyle Johnson.
Winfield.
Kyle Winfield. Right on? Kyle Winfield?
Yeah, like Dave.
Like Dave Winfield. Let me get it right. All right, so the show is about politicking, but this is the first show we're having for African or Black History Month. So we get an opportunity to kind of combine the two here. So what I have here is these two gentlemen, and both of them are really exquisite in what they do in their field. He's an educator. He's educated. I kind of like the way that works out. Again, if you'd like to give us a call, we're at 888-304-4401. So we're going to start off with a little politicking today. So what's happening in politics, my brother?
Oh man, everything is happening. When Trump ran for office the first time in 2015, when he came down the stairs at Trump Plaza, I write a blog about every day or so, and I started writing some things about Trump, some things I saw or foresaw, I guess would be the better way of describing it. Things happening with Trump. And now in his second term, pretty much everything I wrote years ago is basically coming to pass.
Coming to fruition?
Oh, yeah. Just the other day, he decided that anyone from law enforcement that had any involvement, however peripheral, with the January 6th investigation, he wants to fire them.
Yeah.
We're talking judges, we're talking prosecutors, we're talking
FBI
the FBI agents,
agents.
rank and file agents who may have been handed a file and told, hey, investigate this case. And now their jobs are threatened. Today he talked about closing down the Department of Education. What kind of effect will that have on the educational community?
Well, let me ask him. So what kind of effect would that have on the education community, my brother?
All right. I'm going to go at this from a different angle.
Right on. All right. I
Because-
expected nothing but the less.
Because
nothing less.
At the end of the day, the people of color in this country, those who are originally from this country, we have gone through this ever since the settlers were here in the early parts of the 1600s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've had worse presidents than Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the fact that you're going to remove an administration that's responsible for the education of youth, public education specifically, yes, that can be a problem. But if you can go back a little further in history, when the Emancipation Proclamation happened, it was our responsibility to teach ourselves anyway.
Mm-hmm. They call that the Reconstruction period.
Right.
Where we were actually doing pretty well. So what I see here today is I actually see history repeating itself, because pretty much the things that we were fighting for then, a better education, better housing, the equal rights, all of these bills were on the table. We even had the right to vote. And the white supremacists decided, hey, no, we can't have that. And they came in and pretty much took it away. See, and this is why I tell every generation, either you have to fight for something or you're going to have to fight to keep something.
Right.
But we're always going to have to continue to fight.
Absolutely.
I know. Right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just the second week in office, right? And all of this chaos is coming out of DC. Just the other day, Elon Musk, who is a non-elected individual, he's not a public official. He's not a member of Congress or even a regulatory commission, or a member of a regulatory commission. He showed up at the Treasury and was demanding information on Social Security and Medicaid.
But did you know that I believe it was the first day or second day that President Trump, he signed an executive order giving Elon Musk high security.
Security clearances, yes.
Yeah.
But we're talking about people's, things like your Social Security number, things that they have a right to privacy, right? And for him to just go into these offices, just out of a whim and say, hey, I'm demanding this information. Well, why would they have to give it to him? This is information that is to be kept private. It's like your medical records. If it's your Social Security today, what happens tomorrow if he goes to, say, Medicaid and wants all of the medical records? One of the things that they decided to do, some states decided to do rather, as it relates to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, they have decided, and this is some of these southern states, that they're going to follow women's pregnancies. Some of these states are actually demanding medical records. So when you are first discovered to be pregnant, they want to follow your pregnancy along to see.
They want to go a step further than that. They want to monitor a young lady's menstrual cycle.
Well, I think it kind of goes hand in hand, right? They want to know if you're pregnant, are you receiving prenatal care? And let me just tell you something I read. I should have brought it with me. There was a young Black woman, and I believe she was in Ohio, pregnant, right? And she was showing signs of early abortion or missed abortion or a miscarriage. She went to the doctor, and I guess she was spotting things of that nature, some pain. Well, they sent her home. I think she made 2 trips to her doctor. Well, finally, the fetus passed in her toilet. And of course, non-viable. When she went to the hospital and explained what happened, one of the nurses called the police.
Yeah.
The police came, talked to her. Now, you're really not supposed to talk to somebody while they're under a doctor's care, right? But that didn't matter. They interviewed her, and later on, that young lady was charged, right? And they wanted to put this young lady in jail, I think for something like 10 or 15 years. Eventually, lawyers took up her case, and it was overturned, right? But this is America that we now live in, right? Where there is no longer privacy. There is no longer your home is your castle, because now you have Homeland Security kicking open doors saying, where's the Mexican? Where's the brown people? Where's the illegal Black people?
You got to remember, we used to live in the United States of America. Today, we just live in America. It really is a big difference.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's a big difference, because when we were all united, we didn't have a DEI issue. We didn't have the affirmative action issue. Now we're America, so we're gonna roll it back, right? They're talking about take it back, right? So you and I both know that time period. We're talking about the late 1800s, right? We're during the Booker T. Washington era. Clarence Thomas reborn, right? So during that era, they did the same thing, the exact same thing.
Let's go back, man. Let's go back a little further than that. Okay. Because in my humble opinion, time is up. Okay. And when I say time is up, I'm talking about the treaties that were signed that have been reneged on. I'm talking about people who were originally here. I'm talking about previous inhabitants who may be viewed in a different light today, given a different name today. All of these things are happening not by chance. Okay, time is up. Time is up. All of these things that are happening are not happening by chance. And I think that a lot of us might be looking at some of the wrong things. We might need to look at why is abortion such a big issue? and maybe draw the comparison with why some may be having some birth issues, why there aren't as many children being born within certain communities. How can that be controlled, or how can that be increased? So, I mean, in my humble opinion, I think that, we might need to look at this as more of a distraction than as something that, we should be fearful or major concerned about. Because if we've made it this far, in the midst of lynchings, in the midst of killings and family separations and all the things that we're seeing happen in all of these other people, right? Then what makes you think that we can't continue, right? So,
Oh, I do believe that we're gonna carry on.
we have to.
I know we I say at times that I don't think that we as a people are gonna come together because of all of the different tragedies that we have. I'm still waiting for that.
Well, when you say we as a people, who are these people?
Well, here in America, the black people that are here in America, I know there's different terminology. We can back and forth about different types of terminology, but I'm talking about us here in America, right here. At one time, we were segregated. We were forced to come together. We built together. We did a whole lot of things. During the Reconstruction time, was right after slavery. We built, we grew, we did a lot of things. But a lot of us that were in our own part of our own tribe, if you want to say, kind of stabbed us in the back. And I mean politically. Yeah, talking about we were second-class citizens. We had people in our clan, if you want to say, our tribe, like what's his name, Isaac Morton. He was one of the Isaac Montgomery. He was one of the first senators in Mississippi during the Reconstruction era, and he made all of his wealth by putting down black people, and the white supremacists loved him.
All right, so check this out. When you say tribe, right? People of color in this country have been a part of many different tribes.
Many different tribes.
I mean, I can list many of them. Shinnecock, Algonquin, Creek, Choctaw, Cherokee, all deriving from what we know as the She. Okay, She, which is the Olmec, right? We ain't never got along. Okay, we've had tribes that we've been fighting ever since before the settlers even got here. Before the settlers were civilized, we've been fighting amongst each other. Okay, when we exited Andalus, which is better known as Spain, okay, major city Granada, which was the last stronghold of the people of color, for that matter, okay, prior to the settlers coming and discovering this area, okay, we were fighting amongst each other.
Of course.
Okay, the Hebrew or the Ibaru, right, that came here or that were here. Some of the people that looked like us sold us out and told the settlers where we were. So, yeah, this has been the downfall for centuries. People selling out people that look like them. So don't be so quick to assume just because we may be of similar pigment that we're of the same mindset, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, we've been around for hundreds of millions of years. Wouldn't mind talking about that. And there have been people that have not been around that long, right? Going through floods, going through reconstructions, right? These situations that we're dealing with right now, nothing. We're going through a shift, and we're going to enter into a new age again, just as we've been doing.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, this is what my man said. He said, I just remember one show. He said, "All empires fall," and I'm gonna let you pick that one up.
Well, all empires do fall, right? In America, America's days are really numbered, right? Because for years, our leadership, right, those that say that they're our leaders, our political leaders, have not acted in the interest of the people of this country. In fact, they never really have. You know, they've been acting for others. You know, America was, and if you think about it, America, they say that it's named after Amerigo Vespucci.
Mm.
Why would you use a man's first name? That's not the real name of this country. People will tell you that this land was called Morocco centuries ago, right? But of course, they changed the name because there's Morocco in Africa and also in association with the Moors. Couldn't have that. So we call this land America, right? Well, America was basically not just a colony. America was just a simple corporation that was established to make money for the mother country, England.
Mm-hmm.
And the money was flowing to England, right? And there are powerful groups. You know, you talk about people, yeah, they say that Elon Musk is the richest man on the planet. No, he's not. He's nowhere near in the same stratosphere as the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers or the Bronfmans in Canada and several others. Nowhere in the same stratosphere. Oh, he's got hundreds of billions of dollars, but we're talking hundreds of trillions of dollars that these folks have, because our Federal Reserve is owned by who? The Bronfman, the Rothschilds, Rockefeller, and several, J.P. Morgan, several other families. So our tax dollars goes to pay them.
So just to let people know, the Federal Reserve is a private institution. It is
Privately
not,
owned bank.
it is not a part of the federal government.
It is not.
So I say to that, why would the American corporation be concerned about the people? And the reason I say it that way, because when the corporation was founded, right, they needed permission from Morocco to come here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was done with what was known as the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1787, if I'm not mistaken. And with this permission, they were allowed to colonize. Okay. Prior to that, they were trying to figure out how they were going to not be killed by their own people in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, the reason why I said it that way is because in the early parts of the 1600s, when these settlers arrived on skiffs and they were learning how to, man crops and learning the area and they were learning from the people that were already here. Mm-hmm. Right. The wealthy among them figured out that if I can convince the settlers that they're better than those that they're working along, mm-hmm. separate them now, right? I can have a business model where the numbers are in my favor. Mm-hmm. The moment that the working man and woman figures out that they're the same. Now I'm removing pigment from this statement I'm saying now. Mm-hmm. Right. The moment that they figure out that they both are working to survive, when originally we were living off the land. And right? That's when that wealthy class is in trouble. And they know that.
And they reiterated it back with Lyndon B. Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
What was it up?
He said it. He said that if I can, like I just said,
if I can convince the lowest white man that he's better than any black man, he'll not only vote for you, but he'll give you the money out of his pocket.
Vote against his own self-interest.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened in this last election,
mm-hmm.
right? You know, a lot of people went for Trump for various reasons, right? But I think that when it relates to Trump, like, you know, you said we had some bad presidents, and we have. But we never had one like Trump, right? You know, there are people who are born in the world who the universe has blessed with great powers, right? I'm not talking about Superman. I'm talking about somebody like Dr. King, who was blessed with the oratorical skills where he could reach across and be understood by everybody.
By the masses.
Right? The masses. Black, brown, poor, did not matter. They understood him. Mm-hmm. Malcolm X brother went to jail for 8 years, but he came out. He's a genius. Well, then you have those born with negative energy surrounding them. Somebody like Adolf Hitler, one man, not even German, goes to Germany and decides, after he was a failed artist, I'm going to gain control of this country. I'm going to lead this country. What did he lead it to? Somebody like Donald J. Trump.
Don't forget he was in jail too.
He was in
Remember,
jail.
he was a criminal and he was convicted.
Well, that was because of the beer hall putsch when he tried to overthrow the government, right? They put him in jail.
Sounds familiar?
Yeah, he wasn't there for very long because they liked him. But, when he got out, he began his mission. Trump began his mission not just in 2015. Trump began his mission years ago. How many successful businesses has Trump had?
None.
So if a man was to destroy his own businesses with his own hands, what would he do to the most powerful and wealthiest economy on the planet?
He's a president of chaos. That's what he is. He's the president, and he wants to create chaos. And like you said, all empires fall.
Mm-hmm.
So this one will probably be no different.
Probably.
We'll have to fall, and then we'll have to rebuild.
Here's the thing. Right now, well, years ago, everybody wanted the almighty US dollar. There are retailers in this country that will not accept the dollar. They want your credit card. They want your debit card. How can an economy survive but they won't accept your own currency? That shows you how weak this country is.
So check this out, right? The BRICS, okay? It's made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and 35 at this moment.
Other countries. Yes.
Okay. They are now, at this very moment, 4% GDP higher than the United States. Okay. They are in the midst of forming their own currency that will be backed by oil and gold.
That's right.
Okay. So
we have
when
nothing backing our dollar right
Nothing.
now.
it's all
Nothing but
debt.
air.
It's all debt.
Nothing but air.
So when the statement was made that this empire is falling, it's already falling. We're just in the process of it physically falling. Now, let's put that over here. Over here, we have the people, right? What is slowly going to happen over the course of this year is people in this country are going to realize that what's going on outside of our bubble, this place that we live, is not what we've been told. Okay. I'm gonna end with this and then move on. TikTok was shut down for approximately 18 hours. Enough time for a reboot. Okay. Because there was a fear that Americans were starting to see things a little bit too much in other places. Right? They wanted to curtail the information that was being received. Failed operation, because what happened was 70 million, if not more, Americans downloaded a Chinese application called RedNote. And they were able to do everything that they were doing on TikTok and more, and learned about the Chinese culture and learned that it's not what they was told. And the rest of the world is now rooting for us. We don't see that because we only see what we're being shown, right? But again, I reiterate, over the course of this year, we're going to start being observing the outside of our bubble, and they're going to be observing us closely because they know what's going on here. Okay,
we don't, but they
and
do.
we don't. There you go. But they do.
Well, a lot of people seem to have that I've been hearing anyway. This voters' remorse. I've heard, especially the migrants, down in Florida. One woman said that she was so disappointed in Trump that she ended up voting for him. So what do you think about the migrant situation? And how do you think it should be dealt with if
Well-
there is a migrant situation?
Well, here's my take on the migrant situation. Columbus was a migrant.
Mm.
And all of those Europeans that came here were migrants. They were illegal migrants. They did not have papers. They did not have permission to come here. They came, well, some of them had permission, but the floodgates opened, right? And they came here because they couldn't own land in Europe. You had to be a lord to own land in Europe. So they had to come here. Who did they buy the land from? Who gave them a deed? How did they become so wealthy? And the indigenous people who have been here for centuries become so poor. Now you have a situation where we want to get rid of these people. Yet, if you look at the history of this country, you would always bring people from Mexico, from Jamaica, from China to work. Yet, these same people, like us, are called lazy. Why would you bring lazy people 9,000 miles to do your work if we're so lazy?
This is what I would say. In order to perpetuate racism, you got to get the public on your side. Otherwise, it's not going to work. See, like with us, with the N word, and then putting us down and constantly, they had to get the public on their side. When I say they, I mean the people that in power, the larger corporations. They had to have somebody to step down on. So first they would politicize it, like they've done with certain words, DEI, woke, and then they criminalize it, which is what they've done to us, which is what they continue to do. That's why these things are continuing to happen, because they need the masses of the people behind them. They can't do it individually. They got to have the masses to go along with it.
We'll go back to what you said about how was one able, or an entity or group were able to acquire property when they were initially guests. Okay. There were wars fought in this country. They were called the Indian Wars. Right. Many of them were fought with some of my ancestors. Okay. Some of my ancestors, they were went by the titles of Choctaw, Chickamauga, Cherokee, right? And they had initially signed treaties with them, and they reneged on these treaties
Every time.
right? And then they started, to capture them, right? And because there was such a similarity in feature and phenotype, they labeled them all the same. They were all labeled as Negro, right? So over time, the story was changed, right? It was all of you came from someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
You're not from here. None of you are from here. It took several generations, right? You remember the first Roots,
Mm-hmm.
where LeVar Burton, who was playing the role of Kunta Kinte,
Kunta Kinte.
right? He was talking to a lady, I can't remember her name, but he said to her, "We're all from Africa." She said, "I ain't from Africa. I'm from here." Right? So to summarize what you were saying, the trickery had to start with convincing of a different storyline. And this has been done ever since they were civilized. And it was just not them. See, the thing is, we try to make this always about pigmentation. A lot of us, meaning our people that look like us, was down with the hijack too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because they were enabling this thing to happen by way of profiteering from these things. So in summary, that trickery is up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Time is up. A Mexum is what this was called. Again, Turtle Island has had many names. Amexem, we've been called Turtle Island. We've been called Amaru Khan. We've been called Tartaria. We've been called La China. We've had many different names of this landmass. Okay, prior to floods, after floods, reconstruction, so on and so forth. It's just that we're not taught these things because if I was to tell you, right, the truth, how can I continue the lie? It's not possible. I've been rolling with this so long that if you figure this out, it's going to throw everything off. How do you think the French Revolution started? They weren't all getting along. They figured out, wait a minute, we're in the same boat. This is where we are right now. People are going to figure out it's not this pigmentation in a minute. It's going to be in a minute. I'm trying to tell you.
That was something that they knew, right? That's why it was so important. Like they talk about the FBI and getting rid of the FBI. I don't give a damn if they get rid of the FBI. Because when the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover was using the counterintelligence program against black, brown people, poor people, groups that were fighting for justice in this country, they didn't say anything about the bad works of the FBI. They supported J. Edgar Hoover. But during that time, there was a brother from Chicago, brother by the name of Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was down in a place like Mississippi, where he would sit down with dirt poor white people, and they agreed with every point of the Black Panther Manifesto. Didn't disagree with anything, because he told them, you're just as poor as I am. Whether you're down here in the Delta, up in the ghettos of Chicago, what's the difference? That's why they went into that apartment that night and killed Fred Hampton in his sleep, because they saw the power of that brother. Just like they saw it in Brother Martin, Brother Malcolm, just like they saw it in Marcus Garvey. They saw that innate power coming through, and they're like, oh no, we can't allow this to happen.
Well, just like then, just like now, we have certain people amongst our midst that still do the same thing. People like Tim Scott, what's the other? Mark Robinson. All of these so-called brothers that they spew out a lot of disinformation, and they send a lot of I love the poorly educated because they're easily manipulated. You see, and then you have those who want to profit, as you say, they want to fill up their pockets. So here comes a Tim Scott, and he's spewing out all this disinformation. But just like in the past, where did he go? Nowhere.
Time is up. Time is up, brother. Once upon a time, like you mentioned a few names, you mentioned a few key names, and they were fine when they were talking about we shall overcome, and they were fine when they were talking about, I need you to come to the church. Even El Haj Shabazz, he was fine when he was talking about, things that had to do with the fruit. But when he started talking about going to the United Nations, when he started talking about the Aborigines, that's when it became a problem. Yes, I have a dream, and that was fine. But when he started talking about economic empowerment, now what's the problem? Okay, the thing is, and that's why I usually begin addressing things that we discuss with historical context, because a lot of this we were warned about in the early parts of the 20th century. Okay, we were warned that the talented 10th would be responsible for the upliftment of those who just went through this terrible time. We were told that. And we were told that there was going to be some of them that wanted to go along with what was happening. We were told that. These same things are happening today. So I say all of that to say, I'm not tripping. because I see that it's up. I understand what it looks like when these things are coming to a close. I understand what it looks like when societies start to awaken, right? You're looking at groups of people who have traditionally been convinced to be bigots,
Mhm.
okay? Eyes are opening up. Like, wait a minute. They told us that this was going to happen.
Mhm.
They were like you were saying, they crying, right?
Mhm.
All that is the early signs of things to come. Okay, once this nation start, because again, this ain't the first time, right? We had something like this going on in the '60s, going into the '70s,
They
like
had
you
it
just
back in the
mentioned.
1800s.
That's what I'm talking about. So this is nothing
definitely
new.
it's repetitive.
What makes it different, though?
Mhm.
This is what makes it different: is the technology. Okay, how we're able to share this around the world in real time, right? That's what makes this time different. And because of that, you're gonna have support like you've never seen before. Trust me, because it's already starting.
Well, I think we're going to end up being in the position like we were with the British, with paying taxes with no representation. I think we're going to end up right back in there because I was even talking to this brother, and he'd tell you, man, I'm pissed off about these property taxes, and I think something should be done about it. That's my big beef right now.
You know they don't pay taxes in China for property. Did you know that?
Well, then they own their own damn land.
And in many countries in Africa,
They, in Africa, yeah, they buy a house and that's it. They buy a house
right here in America.
Right.
There are states that don't pay property taxes.
Right, Texas.
Okay?
Texas.
So I'm a little pissed off about it because I'm of a certain age, and I just think once you reach a certain age, all that tax nonsense, man, that's got to. I don't earn any more income, and it's a damn shame because I got to pay taxes on the money that I already paid taxes on.
Well,
I pay taxes on my Social Security going in, and now I got to pay taxes on my Social Security coming out.
Well, what do corporations exist to do?
Make money.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so they exist to make money. So that's why you're paying taxes, because the powers that be, the people you talked about, the private bankers,
Mm-hmm.
how do they make their money? Taxation. You got to pay back the debt that this country has amassed, right? They also make their money. They fund both sides of the war. So when Russia goes to war with Ukraine, they send in weapons to both sides.
Yeah, well, they play both sides of the fence.
They always did.
But I'm gonna tell you, on Social Security, that didn't start until Reagan with the trickle down effect. Okay, because he gave a tax break. They called it the trickle down effect. When he gave that tax break, he had to make up that money. And what he did was he put a tax on people receiving their Social Security check. So that's how we now have to pay this tax on our Social Security.
Well, it was more
check.
than that. You know, during that time, prior to Reagan and under Reagan, you could write up the interest on your credit cards, right? Can't do that anymore. So the loopholes for the working class and poor were closed and opened up for the rich. Because in this country, the problem is if you have people who are imbalanced spiritually, imbalanced mentally, they can't give you balance. So what happened, you know, if you go back, you look at the tax codes or the tax rates back in the 50s, the top tax rates country was 90%. 90% of your income. That means 10% of what you only take home 10% of what you make. So the rich people in this country said, no. We're not going to invest so much in business. First, we're going to invest in senators and congressmen. We're going to buy them, and we are going to have them lower the tax burden and shift it away from us onto these poor and working class people.
Just so people know, those people that buy politicians, they're known as lobbyists. So when you hear this word lobbyist, you know exactly what they're going out to do. Okay?
Yeah.
There's a series on Hulu right now currently. It's called Paradise.
I've been watching that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just gonna bring out one specific that has to do with this series. Very good series, by the way. Sterling K. Brown, very good actor.
Very good.
But The one thing that stood out, I mean, there's several things that stand out because I dissected, looked at all of it, right? But there's one thing that stood out that I found very interesting, being a wife and laughing about it. The president was taking orders from this woman who had a major financial interest in this new community. Okay?
Elon Musk.
How about it, right? So what I found interesting was, you had just mentioned lobbyists, and there has not been a society, a modern society in the world, post 1492, because I'm not going to go with pre 1492, I'm going to go post, that has not had a wealthy entity that owned a governor. Okay, I'm going to say it slow. Wealthy entity that owned a government. Okay, each one of these presidents, prime ministers, they have to answer to somebody because they're financed by an entity, right? It's not the people. The people, the concern for the people is that they don't figure out what's going on and decide to revolt. That's the concern for the people. You understand? The concern is that Jeb in West Virginia, who hates Daquan in Harlem, figure out that they are in the same boat. Okay? They don't want Kaylee and Shaquana to be having this discussion that they're in the same boat, because the moment that they figure it out, we're not going to be compliant. Okay? Y'all was discussing paying taxes.
Now we're complacent.
Correct. Y'all was discussing paying taxes, right? One has to comply. Unless it's being taken out, right? One has to comply to do that in order to file. Think about that for a minute. Okay? One has to comply to agree that I'm going to allow this to happen. Okay? How do I get you to comply? I get you in a state of fear. I get you in a state of concern. And
I'm going to take your house.
And that's a fear tactic. You understand what I'm saying?
I don't know. If I don't pay those property taxes, brother,
Hear me out.
Lien on your house.
Hear me out.
All
Hear me
right.
out. Okay, because there was a start to that. That didn't just come out of the blue.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I apologize.
It's all right.
Let me let you run on with it.
It wasn't. That didn't just come out of the blue. There had to be a level of compliance in order for people to say, okay, we got to do it. Right? It was the same thing when we started losing those wars. Because see, we wasn't losing them in the beginning. You should understand that. We was kicking butt all up and down the East Coast, all out in the West. We was kicking butt. Okay, till we started getting sold out. Next thing you know, we on a trail of tears. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? Now, westward expansion, manifest destiny, I'm going to get compliance. I'm creating a culture where this is how it is. Understand what I'm saying? The French Revolution began from a spark. What you mean we gonna just eat cake?
Yeah.
No, we not.
Yeah.
You understand?
Let them eat cake. Yeah.
There will be no, we ain't eating no cake moment here very soon. I'm not calling for no revolution. Those days was back in the days. Where we are now, there's not going to be no one leader that's going to say, oh, chart. No. It's going to be millions of people that finally figure it out and come together and say, you know what? I can't take it anymore.
I'm not going to comply anymore.
That's what's going to happen.
Unless you fool the masses.
But you know something? One of the things, there was one thing that happened that affected both black people and white people in this country. And that was the end of segregation.
Mm-hmm.
The segregationists fought that because maybe they understood what would happen when those barriers were taken down, right? So they would tell black people, well, you can't play at Yankee Stadium. You got to play in the Negro Leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Then Jackie Robinson showed up. So now who's the highest paid baseball player in the world? It's a little Dominican dude named
for the Mets.
Soto.
Yeah, for the Mets. Yeah.
$765 million.
Yeah.
You look at football. Who's the highest paid athlete in football?
Is it Mahomes now?
$50 million, $500 million contract.
Mm-hmm.
What about basketball?
Mm.
We were told we couldn't play that game.
Mm.
Now you look out on the field or on the court. Who's out there? Brothers in neighborhoods, basketball rims that barely have a rim on it. No net. That's how I grew up in Brooklyn. We didn't see no nets. But all you needed was that ball, and you developed those natural skills.
Well, this is what I could say is that we as a people, no matter what situation we've been in throughout history, we've always found a way to excel and overcome. And I don't care what people do or try to do to us. We always seem to rise to the top. We always seem to be that cream that rises to the top and excels. You know, we always got the opposition that's always want to bring you back down, and then you got those people that become complacent and don't want to fight or combat. You know, all the people that want to listen to the garbage. But for mostly, we end up coming back. We end up bouncing back, and usually stronger than before. Like we had the Black Wall Street. Look at all of this stuff, the businesses that now that black entrepreneurs own today. Okay, so we have a way of bouncing back and coming back stronger. I just what I would love if we just came to be a little more monolithic when it came to issues. And not so much behind the scenes. Behind the scenes we can debate, argue this and that. But when we come to the forefront, let us be of one mind.
Not possible. And the reasoning.
What did you just say?
I said not possible.
Oh,
and the reasoning.
I'm just wondering if that was only me that said that. Okay.
The reasoning behind that is, like I mentioned earlier, you know, we are a multitude of different tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you know, these tribes, you know, we have our own thing, we have our own swagger, right? You just come on, we're all of color right here. We know, you know what it's like in the public school in New York City, right? You got all the different types of kids in the class, right? Same thing is throughout the world. But I think that, you know,
Now go ahead, brother.
I think that at the end of the day, you know, to your point, it's about perception and perspective. How are we looking at these things, right? Because traditionally we've been looking at it, you know, like, oh, we need that or we need this, right? When our ancestors was like, no, we don't. Okay, Tecumseh was like, no, you're not going to force me to take on your religion. No, I'm not. Okay, we don't have that type of zeal that some of our grandfathers and great.
But we're working towards it. We'll be working towards it. We're going to have to roll this up and wrap this up. We're going to pick this back up again on our next Politricking. This is Kendall Stevenson, Ronald Yates, Carl Winfield. Thank you guys for tuning in to Politricking. Again, if you'd like to give us a call anytime, give us a call at 888-304-4401. And I would like to say happy Black History Month, even though I really consider it all to be American history, because this is where history comes from, and it should be taught every single day in all the classes. I think everybody should learn about everybody, but you know, diversity is one of the things that people don't want to have. But anyway, Amazing Amy, and we got to check out all the other shows that are on genesisradio.com. Again, Kendall Stevenson, thank you for tuning in to Politricking. Peace. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.